Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are going to be making these complex topics of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable to the everyday person. Thank you so much for tuning in. We ask that if you are listening on audio only, that you take a moment to leave us up to a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It will help to get the show out to more people. And before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder to head down to the show notes and check out my free resources as well as Carrie's free resources. We also do have courses on a variety of topics. If you are hoping to dive deeper, Carrie and I both have practitioner courses available as well for anyone who wants to begin to bring these topics to their clients and help them to implement these strategies into their daily lives. So check those out. We also have a co-taught course called Quantum Fertility that is available that allows people and practitioners to work on their fertility using these principles of quantum biology and circadian biology. Again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's show, whichever one you are doing. And let's go ahead and jump into it now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. Today, we are going to talk about collagen, deuterium, and just different points of view, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe Carrie's going to change my mind on how I think about it.
No, I mean, yeah, well, I think this kind of stems from this idea that there is research that indicates that collagen has been shown to be high in deuterium, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there is research out there. So then, the assumption would be, well, I don't want to overburden my body with deuterium, so let's avoid collagen. And in my digging, I've kind of come across some other information, and just through my clinical observations with clients who are on their collagen peptides, I am 100% fine with my clients taking collagen on a regular basis. And so this is where it's like, and let's say you hear the information that I present, and you're like, that still sounds like BS to me. That's fine. Right. So,
yeah. So it's so funny. Like we're talking before I turn on the camera there, and Carrie and I both are like this. Like I respect the hell out of Carrie, Dr. Pugh. There are several people in this space that I like, oh my gosh, I respect, and I like truly love them. And then we disagree on things, but like, that's okay. Cause like, there's nobody out there in the entire world ever that I agree on like every single thing with, like it just doesn't exist. So people will come to me and be like, well, Carrie said this, or Sarah said that, or they said, I'm like, yeah, okay. Like that's an interesting like way to look at it, but it doesn't, like, okay. Like we sometimes have different point of views on things.
That's the funny thing too, because and this is like, there's nothing wrong with this, but when people are in our private communities, it's like, well, what does Carrie have to say about this? What does Sarah and what does Dr. Sarah have to say? It's like, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. And that's fine. Like your job is to gather information and then you make the best decision for you. Right. Yeah.
That's what I always want for people is like, here, I'm going to show you a bunch of studies, and then you can I will always give you the link to it. So you can look at the study and be like, like I'm going to do a post on melatonin today that could ruffle some feathers, because a lot of the research I have found on melatonin doesn't show what we're kind of have been told a little bit in this community.
Oh gosh, that's a whole other topic.
That is a whole other topic. We kind of did a melatonin episode, I think.
And listen. So we always do this. This is fine, right? So this is where I would always say I would want my clients to optimize their body's own endogenous production, both of pineal melatonin with darkness and subcellular melatonin with light.
Most people aren't doing that, and that's like the essential part of my post is like, here's what the research says. The research actually says you are not going to harm your own endogenous production, but it's number one, a hormone. And number two, are you maximizing your own endogenous production thereof? Like that's really something to.
But like you're alluding to, I think, well, I'm going to be excited to read your post, and hopefully you don't get any nasty.
It's okay. I've already been blocked by certain people who disagree with me, which is fine.
But like, to be honest though, when I dove into, because yes, there is this idea that melatonin thins the retina with long-term supplementation, can impair hormone development in adolescence and stuff. But the same thing when I was diving into the research, specifically because I listened to a podcast with Russell Reiter. Have you ever had him on?
No, I should. That's what I've been thinking about, actually. He's pretty, isn't he in his 80s?
When I listened to this podcast, it was with Mercola. And so Mercola was
I listened to that one. Yeah.
Mercola was asking some pretty intense questions about like the various like biochemical pathways and rate limiting steps and what does research say on this. And so Russell Reiter has been studying melatonin literally for 60 years. Yeah. 60 years.
Right.
And he is a big proponent of high dose melatonin supplementation situationally, for example, potentially around brain injury, cardiac arrest type things. And then he himself takes a ton of melatonin. But, there is this idea that my observations on that, and he's cognitively with it, right? He seems very, very sharp.
Right.
And so that's obviously working for him. So this is where that nuance comes into play as well. It's like,
it would never work for me because even the smallest dose of melatonin gives me like raging nightmares and it disrupts my sleep.
And for me, so for me, what's fascinating, because I've tried varying doses. Now I find that because there's a company
I can handle, but
like the 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. But
I can do that. If I get it to like 10 milligrams and then like, you don't know what you're getting in the bottle, that could be like 100 milligrams.
Yeah. There's big red flags when it comes to the actual melatonin amounts, right? That are not potentially standardized in these things. But yeah, when I tried to say like, well, let's see what it feels like to take 5 milligrams of melatonin, or let's see what 10 milligrams, I would literally crash for 4 hours and then be awake. Right?
That's how I would get knocked out. And then I would be like awake. And then when I was sleeping, it was like nightmare central.
Weird dreams, right?
Yeah, very like major nightmares. And then I tried the one with Dr. John. He's down in Florida. He does all the weird methylene blue. Like he's people have asked me to get him on before. And I'm like, he's just like so out there. I'm not sure I want to bring that to my community, but I tried his like melatonin suppository when I was trying to get pregnant because I was reading some of the research around egg rejuvenation and melatonin. And I'm like, let me try a little bit of this and see if it's helpful for egg quality. And oh Lord, literally the worst nightmares I've ever had in my life. Like,
well, to talk about direct absorption, of mass, a lot of melatonin. Yeah. I tried, there was melatonin. So I love the products from Spencer at Remedy Link for a lot of things, like liver, gallbladder support,
Zenaplex stuff. Yeah.
But the one, and I think he's recently changed it, but the one that I couldn't get around to doing was the one that utilizes serrapeptase, which I love serrapeptase for scar tissue, proteolytic enzyme, right? I love it. I love the idea of a suppository at night for the absorption effect. He put melatonin in it and it messed me up. So so anyways, that being said,
make your own decisions.
Don't parrot. Don't parrot what I say. Don't parrot what Sarah says. Don't parrot what some other person. Don't parrot. Start looking. Start researching.
Make your own opinions. Like you might see a study that even I send you, be like, oh, it was in vivo. Like it was it's done in a petri dish on cells. So does that apply to me as a 45-year-old woman? Maybe, maybe not. Like it was done on a hairless albino rat. Does that apply to me? No.
Right.
Like, so always like, okay, this is interesting, but I want to research this myself and make my own decision. I'm not just going to parrot what somebody else says, copy and paste it and be like, bam.
Yeah.
That happens way too often on social media.
When I've reached out to individuals who had such very strong sentiments about certain things and said, hey, I've been looking for that research that shows X, Y, and Z about retina, but can you please send it to me? I'd love to read it. And they don't have it, right? They can't get it. So it's like, there's things where I'm just like,
you heard there was a study about this, but did you look at that study, or are you just parroting the information that the person said that there was a study?
We talk. Yeah. I mean, we recently did a podcast on studies. And so, I mean, it's like, figure out for yourself. And this is, again, stop outsourcing things and figure out how your body is responding. What are your metrics?
Right.
I love this client or this community member. He's very much got like an analytical mindset, right? Boom, 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 boom. But he's got a very sensitive reaction with his HRV to things. And so it's great because he takes something and it either increases and improves his HRV pretty quickly or it tanks it. right? And so that's his barometer, right? He is using data, but he knows, like, okay, I'm not just gonna trust what so-and-so says. I'm gonna see how my body responds to it and then make a decision. Same thing with me. It's like, for me, if my sleep is messed up, which it's normally great, if my energy is messed up, which is normally great, if I have any form of like bloating or indigestion.
Oh yeah, that's it.
It's there. That for me, I know that's not for me, right? Those are my go-tos for that.
Yeah. So. And for me, like we were talking before we turned on the camera, like I've got a little bit of a cold this morning and I know exactly why. I know there were 3 instances last week where I did something I would not normally do on a regular basis, maybe even more than once a month. And I did it 3 times in the same week. And then now I've been trying to methylene blue and homeopathy and sauna and castor oil. My body's like, unacceptable. But it's a barometer, like, okay, what you're doing, like when you get sick, when you have inflammatory things, gut issues, sleep issues, it's a sign that something that you're doing is not working for you. So you get to make a choice of, am I going to continue doing this stuff, or do I make the change I know I'm supposed to make? So we always are like getting little signs, little signals from our body. It's just like, do we choose to listen or override? You know, do we see the red flags and like take out a spray paint can and like paint them green and sail through? Like, what's your decision here? You know?
Right. No, exactly. Because I mean, if I know anything about having worked with clients for the past 2 decades, it's that there is no one thing that works perfectly for everyone, right? We've said this many times. There's no one thing. And so that's why you really, we can point you in the direction that of what's supported the vast majority, but you still have to make the decision on whether it's right for you.
Yeah. So we don't want to be gurus. Like,
no, I want you to be empowered with your own body and your own intuition and wisdom. So.
Yeah. And that's like the base of this this podcast is like, we want you to feel like you're hanging out, like having a cup of mineral water, structured mineral water, coffee, tea, whatever it is that you drink, like deuterium, depleted water, whatever, just hanging out, like chatting with us as a friend. Like, okay, here's something to look at. Here's an idea to consider for yourself. Is it relevant? Maybe, maybe not, make your own decision about it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's where we're at with collagen. That's why we kind of decided to talk about collagen.
So collagen, like I got kind of into this collagen thing because I'm on an email chain with Dr. Boros and Dr. Senef, a bunch of people that really kind of like discuss these things. And Dr. Boros has done probably, I would say, between 700 and 1,000 different papers on deuterium at this point, and he's just continues to do it. It's his life's work, really. And Dr. Senef, I think, is writing a book on deuterium right now as well.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. I need to get her on my show at some point, but
I'm hoping they're at the water conference. I'm so hoping.
I want to go. I need to manifest that. Like,
please come to.
I know Sarah's going. I think.
Is she going? Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Might be. I mean, I'm going to put it out there somehow.
Yeah. Somehow, some way, please.
Yes. But they both have said that the issue with collagen, and Dr. Boros more than Senef, is that deuterium accumulates in the collagen, and it's kind of a thing that's good, right? Deuterium is neither good nor bad, but it kind of accumulates in the collagen fibers of mammals and marine animals as well, as a protective mechanism, because you don't want everything to be, like EDS, these kind of syndromes where there's no, the joints
strength. Yeah. There's hypermobility. Yeah,
exactly. And so that's really what happens in bovine collagen as well as marine collagen, is this accumulation of deuterium. And when you dehydrate something or boil something, it increases the deuterium levels. And so Dr. Boros has sent me some studies basically showing deuterium levels of anywhere from 160 up to 300, depending on the type of collagen. And so my whole thing is I don't really necessarily want to put that into a drink that I'm drinking. I don't think it's, I'd rather just eat collagenous meat, use red light therapy, encourage my body, cold therapy, encourage my body endogenously to upregulate collagen, vitamin C serum, maybe green tea. There's things you can put on your skin that can help improve it.
Sure.
But yeah. And for hair growth, I have seen people have tremendous results from making sure they have a nutrient dense, mineral rich diet. more so than collagen powders. And so that's kind of my look at it. Could be oversimplified, but yeah, that's what kind of where I'm coming from on this is like,
Yeah.
why would I want to add something that's going to possibly accumulate in the mitochondria and break the nanomotors, right? And create less water and ATP.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. That line of thought absolutely has some great logic to it. So when I dove into this research, it was because I already had clients on hydrolyzed collagen peptides from grass-fed bovine sources. And there's a reason for bovine. I'm going to explain it in a second. But from grass-fed bovine sources, and they were experiencing great results. And the results actually came not always when they were on the collagen, but let's say they couldn't buy it for a few weeks. And then they were like, oh, my knees are hurting, or, oh, my digestion isn't as good. My sleep isn't as good. My skin looks a little duller. So things like that, right? And so I thought to myself, okay, well, since we have a massive need for glycine in the body, and glycine is the 33% basically of collagen, that amino acid, and that amino acid's depleted drastically or changed drastically because of glyphosate. I thought to myself, okay, let's just keep this up because this appears to be getting good results for people. And so then when, Dr. Boros came out and Dr. Sarah, and then you were talking about deuterium and collagen, I did a dive, me, I dive into that because I'm always curious if my recommendations need to shift and change at all. And what I found was that with it makes sense, right? That the collagen will accumulate in the connective tissue, like you said.
So Carrie, I don't know about you, but I'm doing a couple little trips this summer. And what is the one thing that you're definitely going to be bringing with you on your packing list?
I love portable red light therapy for sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Yes. You can't underestimate, honestly, what red light therapy can quote unquote treat or support when you're away from like eating something that disagrees with you to like your kid falls and scrapes the knee and you want to do a little extra repair and support, to a headache, to an earache, to like you name it, and just then as general maintenance, right? Or like, let's say you're at the beach, you want to precondition your skin, right? All these things. And or
you're traveling on an airplane and you want to kind of offset some of that mitochondrial damage that's going to naturally happen from being in a plane. Like I know Dr. Sarah brings her this is our Bond Charge Mini, and you can use the code Quantum Pod to save on yours, but I know she will just kind of put it with thyroid, right? Because when you're in an airplane, you are exposed to high levels of non-native EMF, and a little panel could be a great way to support your mitochondria to make more exclusion zone water so that there's a little bit of a protective barrier when you're in those high stress environments, right?
Exactly. And then also in a pinch, I'll use that, like, let's say in a hotel room or something, to turn on a light if I need to, right? It's just in a pinch, it's a really good way, just kind of almost like act as a flashlight or illuminate the space at night, if you need to for some reason. So I have found so many uses for that portable red light therapy.
Yep. It's awesome. So if you are interested in one of these, you can use the code Quantum Pod. This is by Bond Charge. They are sponsoring the podcast. We really appreciate that. And check them out. There's a link down in the show notes.
I totally see where you're coming from with all that great information. I know that Dr. Boros has probably done some phenomenal research in terms of deuterium and the collagen, Dr. Seneff as well. But, when I started to just notice my clients having benefits from collagen, and this was before, right? I had clients on collagen before I learned of Dr. Boros's work, before I learned about Dr. Seneff's opinion, what you and Dr. Sarah are recommending. And so I already had clients who were getting improvements in joint health, improvements in digestive health, even skin health, right? And so I thought to myself, oh, interesting. So maybe there's a downside to collagen. I mean, I also was thinking to myself, well, I knew already about how glyphosate depletes potentially glycine in the body, right? And glycine is a main component of collagen, right? So if we consume that glycine in these collagen peptides, our body can then use that glycine substrate for collagen health, but a lot of other enzymes in the body that require glycine. So I was kind of intrigued to be like, am I making a wrong recommendation with this because of the deuterium content? And so when I started to dive into that research, and maybe Dr. Boros has some unpublished stuff, which would be interesting. But when I started to dive into the research, I found some fascinating research that went back to the early 1900s, believe it or not, like really old research. And I was like, okay, this particular research line of research was fascinating, where they started to basically show it was collagen in particular. They started to show which animals on this planet had the vast majority of collagen, like deuterium in their collagen, right? And so marine animals absolutely had a lot of deuterium in their collagen. Interestingly, this latest research that I think stirred up a lot of even conventional headlines in terms of deuterium was that they found bones. These were bones from, I believe, seals, right?
Seals.
But these were thousands of years old, right? Or maybe the Middle Age, maybe 1,000 years old or so, right? Give or take 500,000 years old. Whenever medieval would be, I'm not a history buff, right? But these were at least hundreds of years old, these bones, and they found that these bones had, like you said, like 300%, 320, I think, percent more deuterium in their collagen than even could be accounted for by diet, by the water that they were swimming in, by the foods that they were eating. And so it left them puzzled, like, how are they getting such high deuterium in their collagen, right? And so so then I kept on looking, and then this one particular research article showed specifically that bovine, or it would be called terrestrial omnivores, right? Cows, right? Terrestrial herbivores. Terrestrial herbivores had the lowest deuterium content in their connective tissue, in their collagen. And so that's why I, I'm like, well, great. I'm recommending bovine, grass-fed bovine collagen peptides. Okay. So at least it's a lower version of what could have the deuterium in it. And then my brain was just like, well, let's think about it, right? Let's think about it. Where these collagen peptides basically are containing, there's 2 amino acids in that collagen that have been shown to potentially hoard deuterium, right? Proline and hydroxyproline, right? They can be deuterium hoarders. I thought to myself, specifically hydroxyproline. So I was like, where would hydroxyproline be able to input its electrons and protons, its deuterium, into the mitochondrial electron transport chain? And I couldn't find any biochemical pathways. Right. And so it's like, yes, when the deuterium on carbohydrates, a C6H12O6, those 12 H's in carbohydrates, those could contain deuterium that get to the mitochondria. Same thing within fats, although fats are lower, much lower, there is an input for fat into the mitochondrial electron transport chain. There's not a direct input of amino acids into the mitochondrial electron transport chain. So that's when I thought to myself, okay, well, let's see, have there been any radio-labeled studies done of collagen amino acids to see if they actually make it into the collagen? So do we eat the collagen and it actually does become our own internal collagen? And there is indication that what we consume both can upregulate our endogenous collagen and become the substrate of the collagen that we're producing. So right now, at this point in time, I don't hesitate to recommend bovine hydrogen, basically bovine collagen peptides, hydrolyzed collagen peptides, because I've noticed a benefit in clinical practice, including my own mom, right? My own mom who loves them for her joints. And so I've noticed, I've noticed a big benefit. And then yes, they can contain deuterium, but are we being a little maybe reductionist in saying it's high in deuterium, it's going to jam up the mitochondrial ATPase when I've not yet seen the mechanistic link? Now, if Dr. Boros has these papers, I would love to read them, right? I would absolutely love to read them. But at this point in time, just my clinical antenna says this is providing benefit for people. And I'm not talking about consuming all of your amino acids from this. I'm talking about maybe 10 grams per day to see over the course of about a month whether you notice a benefit, right? And so So that's just kind of where I've been coming from with this, is just seeing, okay, yes, it can hoard deuterium. Collagen can hoard deuterium. Which animals are we talking about? Is there a way for that deuterium to eventually get to the mitochondria and cause mitochondrial dysfunction? I've just not seen those links.
Yeah. And that's something I can reach out to Dr. Boros about. I was just kind of re-looking through his emails and saying, oh, well, this does look more so like marine collagen, but I'm going to ask him, something I can ask him, say, what about bovine collagen? Is it still an issue? Because he was essentially saying that the dehydration process is the biggest, not the biggest, but an issue with the collagen powders. But I mean, there's always anecdotal evidence, right? If you're getting from a large sample size of people who are saying it does help, then, and I had a friend of mine who has kind of been in this research, and he's a professional, and he reached out to me kind of wanting to look at those studies as well, because he has a back injury. And he's like, I want to know that all this money I'm spending on collagen powder is a waste, but it does feel like it is helping me with this back injury that I've got right now. Right. I want that. I want it to be there, but it does feel like it's helping me a little bit. So that's, again, one of those things where I'm like, well, people should try for themselves and see. And you can always test your deuterium levels. That's something we're probably going to talk about in a future episode, is like, what does impact deuterium levels in the body, because we can say, this, like, we're so caught in still the biochemical model in a lot of ways, of like, you put something in and you get something out. You supplement with a hormone and you get, like we were talking about melatonin earlier. We don't know what happens when you put melatonin endogenously into the body. Like, we don't know all the other reactions that are happening, the resonance. Obviously, melatonin doesn't necessarily really resonate well with my body for some reason, right? So there's always that can't necessarily be studied or measured. So there's so many factors we have to look at. And I mean, I think I would love it if we could get people that listen to do deuterium tests to see, like, if you're someone who does supplement with collagen on a regular basis, what does your deuterium test actually say? Do you have super high levels? Right. Yeah.
I know. It's like, it's interesting. And I'm not saying like eat deuterium rich foods, right, by any capacity, because I do think that the deuterium from potentially water sources, although I do think people need to be hydrated, but deuterium from water sources plus deuterium from processed foods are by far the worst.
Processed foods, because there's glyphosate in there as well.
Exactly. And so you get good deuterium dysregulation because of that glyphosate as well. And so, I mean, one other nuance to this conversation, and again, if there's any research or information, but it's about how eating different foods changes the microbiome, right? And so I had actually some clients, and the microbiome can sequester deuterium for us, essentially. So interestingly, when I've had some clients, like I said, supplement with collagen, they improved their gut health. And these were clients who I don't put much validity into these tests, but they had before and after stool analyses to show improved microbial diversification, right? Of our good endogenous microbiome, right? Improved diversification, which is a sign of gut health, right? In microbiome health. And so then I was like, well, what's going on there? Well, it turns out that the quote unquote good bacteria in our gut, the heterotrophic bacteria, they actually can enrich themselves with deuterium in order to diversify themselves as a growth factor, right? We know that deuterium is a growth factor.
It's a growth factor,
right. And so I thought to myself, oh, that's fascinating. So if we have potentially, even if we have a healthy gut microbiome as well, even if we are consuming some stuff that does contain a little bit of deuterium, we essentially have a filter for it before it actually gets into our bloodstream as glucose, and then can make its way to the mitochondria. So there's a whole layer about how the microbiome can also sequester deuterium for us. That's really not brought into this conversation either. And so just nuance, right? Just nuance that it would be fun if we could all get a bunch of people and we could nerd out about this. And I have more questions than answers for sure. I've got more questions than answers, but this is just where my brain goes when I hear, okay, collagen has deuterium, collagen bad because of that. It's like, well, let's kind of see, because if deuterium is bad in the mitochondria, what's happening from the collagen that we eat to before it can, the pathway that it gets to make its way potentially to the mitochondria.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like, obviously are not like telling people to go eat a bunch of processed foods and eat a bunch of junk and like, for obvious reasons, but again, your body does have ways of dealing with things. And I'm curious with the people who saw all the gut health, microbial diversity increase, were they at the same time implementing the protocols that we do with circadian biology, maybe getting light on the belly in conjunction? Yeah, because
lots of confounding factors for sure. But that there is research, though, interestingly, because I dove into that, there is research that shows that hydrolyzed collagen peptides can diversify the gut microbiome. And those studies were not done on, no one was doing circadians.
No, or putting sunlight on their belly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. No. People don't do that in these studies. Nobody's doing that in these studies.
It's never controlled for it.
Why they're all kind of bunk is like, no one's getting sunlight on their belly. No one's seeing sunlight in the morning. No one's blocking artificial light at night. Like it's none of these studies they're doing that. And so, because I was diving into some of that research over the weekend for just light and the gut microbiome, which is really, really fascinating.
It's cool.
It's very cool because there's so much like that you can do to increase diversity, heal the gut lining, just with light alone, with UV and mostly red and near infrared, but also there's UV evidence of UV.
Yeah, UV too for gut microbiome diversity. Yeah, UV for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is
exactly
just kind of going back to what you're talking about with these studies. That's the same thing with the melatonin stuff that we talked about in the first place, right? Like, so we're told that melatonin declines as we age. But does it decline as we age because we live a more indoor lifestyle? We're not producing the serotonin in the morning, and then we're watching, the news or whatever game show or whatever it is at 11 o'clock at night, right? Plus, what about not controlling for fluoride and fluoride's capacity to calcify the pineal gland and what that can do to melatonin production? So, that would be an interesting conversation with Russell Reiter to be like, okay, I do see that there is an association between getting older and melatonin decline, but who is controlling for the light environment, which we know is the primary way that the pineal gland understands when to make melatonin in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you said, my grandparents, when I was a kid, I always remember falling asleep on their bed as they were watching the 11 o'clock news with like all the overhead lights.
Yup. Yeah.
Yeah. I have like vivid memories of that from childhood. It's like they did that all the time, so.
Yeah.
And I have women, in their 60s and 70s that sleep through the night and they don't use any melatonin.
Totally.
So
yeah, totally.
I think it's important to keep an open mind with these topics. I definitely have one and not just like shut something down because so-and-so said it. I've definitely made that mistake in the past of like, oh, well, this person says it, so it's true. But then you have a sample size of people trying it. You also look deeper at that research yourself and you're like, okay, maybe I was wrong to have parroted this information. Yeah. There's more to it than just that. That's what people are doing with like the carnivore diet. Like I still see it, like I'm not really in that community anymore, but I'll see people talking about these like amazing stories of how they've healed all these lifelong issues, which was definitely true for me. And then the people in the comments like, oh, it's because you got rid of processed foods. Oh, it's because you did this. Oh, it's because you did that. And I'm like, I don't think that has anything to do with it. Or it may have something to do with it, but I don't think that's like the key to this whole thing. There's other mechanisms at play and we shouldn't just write off people's, stories.
Well, anecdotal evidence is my favorite evidence by far.
Yeah.
Right. I love it.
When there's a lot of it.
When you get a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do I think carnivore diet is like a wise thing to do for the rest of your life, 365 days a year? I'm pretty solid on no at this point from my anecdotal research with the people that have me with, I've been carnivore for a couple of years, and now I have these, these issues are great, but these other issues have now arisen. And so, I think it was Dr. Will Cole was on my podcast a few years ago, and he was just like, sometimes one set of issues like gets better and you get a lot of relief, but it creates another set of issues. So that's why it's important not to have a catch-all or a definite answer for absolutely everything. It was just like, investigate, stay open-minded, don't parrot people.
that you hear stuff from without really trying it out and studying it more yourself.
Well, yeah. And something that I think is unfortunate with this is in that whole thing, when someone has maybe gone keto or gone carnivore and they have healed something, and then all of a sudden the healing, or they felt better, and all of a sudden they start to feel worse. And then they blame themselves. And then they say, I have to keto harder, I have to carnivore harder, I must need to add cold plunges. I have to add fasting in, right? And then, but maybe, just maybe, you use something therapeutically for a beautiful window of time, and now your body is asking for a change, right? And so just to be aware of that. That's what we see. You and I see that a ton, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as always, keep an open mind and do your own research. I definitely try to do this myself, and definitely will say, hey, I was wrong about this, wrong about that. And yeah, it's funny though. I mean, there's always going to be a hater in the background. There's always going to be somebody like antagonizing, hating. And it's like, yeah, it's fun sitting up there in the cheap seats, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, they're not imploding ether in a way that is negentropic and self-organizing, and they're deteriorating a lot faster because of that. So you need compassion in order to derive life force energy from the quantum field.
Compassion, empathy, open mind, and understanding you don't exist in a vacuum. Like nobody does. Like it just doesn't work that way. And so all right. Well, this was fun. I am definitely going to reach out to Dr. Boros, see if he can actually give me something on the bovine collagen, because I just looked back through that and I couldn't really.
And see if he has any radio labeled studies on on collagen peptides with the deuterium content that he's talking about actually making their way to the mitochondria and jamming up the ATPase. I'd love to see that done somehow.
Yeah. And he'd be the one to ask. So
for sure.
I'm on it.
Cool.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week.